Yep, that's right ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the year again, and in celebration of this Christmas, I decided to survive 100 days as a snow golem in a snow-only world, with the single goal in mind of building a beautiful Christmas wonderland for all snow golems to live in a beautiful Christmas peace. But there was plenty of stuff that needed to get done first. So go ahead and kick your feet up, grab some of your favorite Christmas snacks, and enjoy the story of how I survived 100 days as a snow golem in a snow-only world. So starting off things right away on day 0, after loading in, I looked around and then made my way straight over to a tree, where I went ahead and collected myself up a little bit of wood. Then, after collecting that wood, I spotted a nearby village, where on the way I collected myself a couple of pumpkins and then made my way over to the village where I started looting the entire thing. Once I was done looting all of it, I went ahead and made my way over to the middle of the village, where I dug down in the middle, crafted myself a wooden pickaxe to get myself all the stone I was gonna need. And also nearly died to water a couple of times. Yep, as a snowman I'd take damage from water. Anyway, when I was done collecting all my stone, I made my way back out of the hole, where I went ahead and quickly killed the iron golem, which sadly only gave me 3 iron, but I guess it was at least more iron than I had before. Using that iron, I then went ahead and crafted myself a shield, as I thought that would be the most important thing, and then a pair of shears. I'm not exactly certain why I crafted the shears, but yeah, I have them now. I then went ahead and hopped in a boat and started gliding my way across the ice, where I came across a couple of things, including an abandoned portal and then even a pillager outpost that had a whole bunch of allies in cages. So I quickly went ahead and looted the pillager outpost and even took a sleep at the very top of it, and then made my way over to a nearby igloo that I had spotted. When I got there, however, I wanted to make my way down to the bottom, but it was still all filled with water. So I decided to make my way over to a nearby village, where I killed an iron golem, looted all the chests, and then even killed myself another iron golem. Now with my new iron, I went ahead and crafted myself a bucket and went back over to the igloo and started using that bucket to very sketchily make my way down to the bottom. This took a little while, but when I got down there, I plugged up all the rest of the remaining water, then went ahead and grabbed the weakness potion out of the brewing stand and the golden apple out of the chest and put the villager onto convert, since I figured I could probably use him later on. Then, after making my way back to the top of the igloo, I decided that I may as well make this place my home, since it was in a pretty good location. So I crafted myself a chest and started throwing all my items in there, and then made my way over to a nearby village, where I started collecting a bunch of wood and some snow, since the original igloo was definitely going to be way too small. So after planning out the shape that I wanted for the new size of the igloo, I went ahead and made sure to plant down a couple of trees nearby so that I'd have them when I need it, and then continued to work on expanding the igloo. This took me about the rest of the day, but when I was eventually done with the interior and the exterior, it was looking much better than before and way more spacious. Then on day 4, I got straight to chopping down that tree that I had just planted, and even made my way over to the nearby land and started looking for a cave, which I found pretty easily, to be honest with you. So I got straight to mining and mined myself up a bunch of coal and iron, until eventually I had gathered over a stack of it, and I started making my way back over to my house. When I got there, I went straight ahead and put on all of my ores to smelt, and then quickly went to bed. When waking up the next day, I started grabbing all the iron out of the chest and used it to craft myself full iron armor, since I figured that would be a good choice since I only have 2 hearts. I also then went ahead and collected myself a bunch of dirt and even a little bit of sand, and then made my way back over to my house and finished chopping down that tree, where I then used the wood to make myself a little farmland right outside the back. After planting down all my crops, including my sugarcane and carrots, I went ahead and started chopping down even more wood, and then I made my way over to a nearby village, where I got myself a farmer villager who would trade me bread for emeralds, and after collecting a bit of gravel to get myself some flint, I crafted myself a fletching table that I then used to get myself a fletcher who would give me emeralds for sticks. From there, I obviously got straight to trading with him to get myself a bunch of emeralds, and then made my way back over to the farmer, where I bought myself a bunch of bread, as I'd been running low on food, and this was a good solution to it. From there, I quickly made my way back over to my little igloo home to organize my inventory a little bit, and then went ahead and made my way back over to the village and started doing even more trading to get myself a couple more emeralds. Using those emeralds, I then went ahead and bought myself a couple of arrows and made my way back over to my house and down into the basement, where I did a little bit of trading with that cleric who I had converted earlier. However, sadly, to get him to the level where he'd be selling me ender pearls, I was gonna have to do a bunch more trading with him. So I made my way straight back over to that nearby village and started chopping down all the houses, as in spruce villages, all the houses are pretty much made out of logs anyway. Then I went ahead and used those logs to convert them into sticks and start trading with my fletchers to get myself even more emeralds. Then using those emeralds, I started trading with my cleric again, and by the time I was finally able to level him up to the point where he'd be selling me ender pearls, he wasn't selling me ender pearls at all. So I decided to mine up his brewing stand and place it down in front of the other villager that was trapped down here so that he would also become a cleric. Then using the emeralds I had, I started doing a little bit of trading with him, and even after chopping down and trading a whole bunch more wood, I was still just barely not able to trade him up to the right level to be selling me the pearls. So I had to do a whole bunch more wood chopping and trading. But then eventually, after trading with him a little bit more, I was able to get him to the point where he'd be selling me ender pearls, and thank goodness he actually was selling me ender pearls. However, 9 was obviously not going to be enough for what I was going to need it for. So I continued the process of chopping down the villagers' houses, then turning them into sticks and trading it back to them for some emerald, until a bunch of trading later, I'd collected enough emeralds to buy even more ender pearls, which got me just over a stack, which I was happy with for now. Now, as a lot of you may have figured out by now, I was trying to get enough ender pearls to be able to go to the end. However, you may be thinking, well, Vanilla, why don't you just go to the nether and collect ender pearls the normal way? Well, sadly, as a snowman, you take damage as soon as you enter the nether, and at this time I didn't think it was going to be possible to enter the nether. Now, you may also be thinking, well, how are you actually going to craft the eyes of enders, because you need the blaze powder? So sadly, at this point, because like I say, I didn't think I could actually enter the nether, I had to add a data pack that added this recipe that would allow me to be able to craft eyes of ender without having to use any blaze rod. I was a little bit annoyed that I wasn't able to just do it the right way, but it still was a pretty expensive recipe, so I guess it wasn't the end of the world. So since I was going to need 4 emeralds for every eye of ender that I decided to craft, I continued the process of chopping wood, and then trading with my villagers, and then chopping down more wood, and going ahead and doing more trading, and then chopping down more wood, and trading with the villagers again, and then chopping more wood, and going ahead and trading with the okay, I think you guys get it by this point. Anyway, much trading later, I made my way back over to my house, and then went ahead and crafted all the iron nuggets I was gonna need, and then laid the crafting recipe out in the crafting table, and got myself 16 eyes of ender. Now that I had all the eyes of ender I was gonna need, I started crafting and gathering everything I was gonna need to properly make my way to and loot the end. I also decided to spend the night of day 10 killing creepers, and subsequently had my first death. But after gathering up all my stuff, I went ahead and killed a couple more creepers before making my way home, where I collected up a bunch of my sugarcane and used it to craft myself some firework rockets before throwing my eye of ender and heading off to find the stronghold. When I eventually was getting close, I threw a couple more eyes of ender to find out that it was going straight under the ice, which was great that I had found it, but also not so great because it was straight underwater, and like I mentioned earlier, I take a lot of damage from water. So I started thinking of ways that I could possibly make my way down there, and after a failed attempt to dig there, I had a glitch where the hearts reset from 2 all the way back to full hearts again. So eventually, I decided to just craft a couple of doors, and then jump into the water and hope I could make it to the bottom and place a door in time, which I did actually quite easily do. But then it was the painful job of blocking myself in completely so that I'd be able to mine the block under me without water pouring in and killing me. And when I eventually got that right, I was able to finally start digging down, only to come into even more water caves that I very painfully had to make my way through by placing a ton of blocks. So a bunch of pain later, I eventually fell down into this cave here, where after exploring a little bit, I was able to find the start to the stronghold. Then I got straight to exploring the stronghold, where I was very quickly able to find the first library, where I mined myself a bunch of books, and then continued exploring the stronghold, where after making my way down the staircase, I was able to find the portal room. So I lit the portal and set my respawn, as well as making a little chest with some backup stuff in case I ended up dying, and then went ahead and jumped through the portal, getting probably the best spawn I could. So I dug my way straight out and turned on hitboxes and quickly got to killing the ender dragon, which was going really well until I died somehow. Didn't really make sense. But after respawning and a bunch of killing later, I finally took the last hit on the ender dragon, killing it. Then I went ahead and collected up all the XP, as well as making sure to collect myself the dragon egg, and then started building my way over to the end gateway, where I threw an ender pearl through, cranked up my render distance, and got to doing a bit of end looting. So, a couple of days of end looting later, I made my way over to a nearby end gateway that I had spotted, where I threw an ender pearl through, which for some reason weirdly only gave me the remote gateway now. But that's fine, I guess. So, I made my way back to the portal, which took me straight back to the portal room, as that's where I set my respawn. But instead of trying to make my way out, I decided to just break the bed and jump back into the end, and then I ran to the end portal and jumped through again, which took me to the world spawn. And luckily, I knew that my house wasn't very far away. So, when I had gotten back to my igloo, I went straight inside and added an Unbreaking 3 book that I had gotten from the stronghold to a pair of my elytra, and then threw the rest of the things I'd gathered from the inn straight into a chest. Now, since I was back home, I got straight back to chopping more wood, but this time not for emeralds. You see, this time I used it to craft myself a bunch of bookshelves that I then used to set up an enchanting area outside. Then I made my way inside, and this is when I realized that I don't actually have any lapis, because I didn't mine any when I was in the caves earlier. So, I quickly went ahead and made my way over to the mainland and mined myself up a little bit of cobblestone that I then put a little bit of that into a furnace, and once it had smelted I used to craft myself a grindstone. Then I made my way back over to the mainland and into that cave where I had gone earlier, and quickly went ahead and collected myself a bunch of lapis until I had eventually gathered over a stack, closing in on 2 stacks, and I was happy with that. So, I made my way out of the cave and quickly made my way back over to my house, where I then went to bed. When I woke up the next day, I went straight over to the enchanting area where I enchanted my axe, which got efficiency, unbreaking, and fortune, which was pretty great since I'd been using my axe so much, and that's pretty much all I wanted. Then I did a little bit more enchanting on some of my armor, and eventually was able to get some pretty decent things, including a fully maxed out fortune pickaxe, as well as some decent stuff from my other tools and armor too. Since I was now looking pretty good on my tools, I decided it was time to get back to the main project of this video, building that beautiful Christmas village. So I went ahead and hopped to my boat and started making my way over to the village that I decided to convert. On the way, I also decided to stop at another village and collect a couple of beds, and then went ahead and collected a bunch of wood that I used to craft myself a whole bunch of fences. From there, I made my way back over to the village I wanted to convert and started surrounding the entire thing with fences just to keep in all the villagers. This used up a bunch of wood, and I even had to go back to my house to collect a bit more to craft even more fences, but eventually I did get the entire thing surrounded, and it was a pretty big job. Then I crafted myself a whole bunch of boats and started trapping all the villagers I could find in them so it'd be out of my way while I was tearing down all of their houses. When I was eventually done trapping in all of the villagers, I then went ahead and laid down a couple of chests to put all the supplies in and got to tearing the village down. Now sadly, since I had to use Forge to run the mod that would allow me to be a snowman, and replay mod only works on fabric, I sadly was not able to use replay mod at all for this video, so I don't really have much of an interesting way of showing you how I tore this village down. But nevertheless, once I had eventually torn the entire thing down, it was looking much plainer, but definitely a lot better. I also did decide to take all the wood that I had gotten from tearing down the houses, convert them into sticks, and then trade them with the villagers to get myself a bunch more emeralds. Then I took all the beds I had previously collected and started laying them down in this nice little pattern here, so that when it became nighttime, all the villagers would make their way over there, where I then went ahead and trapped them in using some fences, once again just so they'd be out of my way while I was building. So with the area now being nicely flat and nicely walled in too, I quickly went ahead and threw my villagers a whole bunch of bread for them to start breeding up, then went ahead and used some dirt to mark out exactly where the middle of the square was so that I could use that when I was building the rest of the village. Now you're probably wondering why I've just cut to me randomly in the middle of the night running around with my sword. Well, if you've been here for a little while, you may already have a good guess as to what happened. Essentially, I just went ahead and did a whole bunch of stuff and didn't record it. Yeah, it's been a little while since I've done this, but it's always annoying when it happens. And as you can see here, I was pretty annoyed. Anyway, by this point, I had just done a whole bunch of work and was just quickly killing a bunch of creepers to get myself some gunpowder as I was running out of rockets. So, after killing a couple more creepers, I went ahead and took a quick little sleep in a nearby village, and then made my way back home, where I crafted myself some rockets, and then finally flew up to show you guys what I had actually done over that time where I had forgotten to record. Essentially, I just turned the massive square into a circle, which was a lot of pain, so it's probably a good thing that I didn't record anyway, since it wouldn't have been very interesting. Anyway, now that I had properly marked out the outline for how I wanted this place to look, the fences weren't looking the best as some walls, and so that's what I wanted to get busy with next. So I decided that since I was going to need a bunch of red dye, I would go ahead and build myself an iron farm, since I could be getting iron and some poppies from that at the same time. So I started gathering everything that I was going to need to build an iron farm, and then when I was making my way down into the cave to collect some resources, I actually went ahead and spotted this spawner, which after making my way up to, discovered it was a skeleton spawn, where the loot was, I guess it was alright. But anyway, this was actually great nevertheless, since it meant that I wasn't actually going to have to build an an iron farm anymore because I could turn this into a quick little mob farm and then use the bones to collect all the flowers I was gonna need. So I quickly made my way back over to my little igloo home and collected all the things I was gonna need to transform this. Then I made my way back over to the spawner and started digging out the room and building this farm. Now for those of you who have built this farm before, you should know that it doesn't really take that long. However, the most annoying part of this was pretty much just the fact that I had to build downwards to create the floor where the water was gonna flow and the little storage area. And even after building the farm, I also had a couple problems where it wasn't really working, but after doing a little bit of editing to the design, got it to the point where all the skeletons were falling into the hole and I was easily able to kill them all to collect the XP and the bones. So with this great success, I decided to sit here for the next 2 days and kill skeletons until I'd collected plenty of bones, which was definitely going to be more than enough for now. So after collecting them up, I made my way back over to my house and started laying out a little area to build a flower farm. Originally, I just figured that I would grow and mine these manually. However, after a little bit of testing, I decided that definitely wasn't good work. So I decided I was rather going to build an automatic flower farm. However, this was when I realized that I was going to need some observers to build that, and I couldn't get it because I wasn't able to go to the nether to get quartz. Or could I? You see, in my mind, there were only 2 ways that this could happen. Number 1, I could try and make my way over to the nether and hope that I spawn close enough to quartz to be able to mine it up before I eventually end up dying. Or way number 2, I can make my way over to the nether where I would then spawn close enough to a piglin to hopefully throw him gold where he could then pick it up and trade it back to me, giving me a fire resistance potion that I could then drink fast enough so that I didn't die in the nether. However, obviously both of these were very unlikely and luck-based scenarios. Nevertheless, I decided to go ahead and mine myself a little bit of obsidian and then build a nether portal right next to my base, where I then threw all of my items into a chest nearby and then made my way to the nether and got probably the worst spawn I could get in a basalt biome. So after a little bit of standing here, I just ended up dying. Then when I made my way back home, I collected up all my things out of the chest again, mined up the obsidian and traveled far away to build myself yet another portal to see if I perhaps got a better spawn. Once again, I threw all my items into a chest and went through, but got just as bad of a spawn and yeah, ended up dying. So with those 2 failed attempts and a couple more off-camera failed attempts, I decided that this definitely wasn't gonna work. However, this was also the moment that I realized there was another way that I could get fire resistance, which was gonna be totems of undying. See, since the 1.16 update, totems of undying actually give you 40 seconds of fire resistance. So I figured that if I get enough totems, I could probably make my way to the nether and pop them in time to be able to get myself enough fire resistance to get the materials that I wanted. So with that in mind, I made my way back over to my house and collected everything I was gonna need to defeat a raid. Then I went ahead and killed myself a pillager captain and made my way over to a village that I knew I wasn't gonna be needing in the future. So when the raid started, I got straight to killing the raiders, which was going fairly well until the stronger ones started coming along, and I definitely suffered a couple of deaths in this raid. But after eventually killing the last raider and getting hero of the village, I had only sadly collected 1 totem and it died like 3 times. So I decided this probably wasn't going to be the best way for me to be able to collect totems. So I quickly gathered up all the things I was going to need to build a really simple raid farm and then made my way over to the middle of an ice lake and started building the thing. The tutorial for this will be in the description, but I would definitely recommend that if you decide to build this in a snow only world, you definitely don't build it over an ice lake, since it was an absolute pain. Anyway, eventually when the thing was done, I went ahead and killed myself a pillager captain and then made my way over to the farm and waited for the raid bar to start. However, I had this weird thing where the raid bar would get all the way to the top and then disappear because, well, I figured it was probably because the raiders had nowhere to spawn. But even after building platforms and testing it again, it wasn't working. So I decided to do a little bit of research and then learned that I was building the platform in the completely wrong area. So after building the new one and testing it, the raiders were in fact spawning, but for some reason they would just spawn on the platform and stand there, not even making their way across the ice, making it very easy for me to defeat the raid, but still taking a decent amount of time. So I quickly went ahead and built a grass path connecting the platform to the farm, where it eventually then did start working, since they would make their way across the grass and fall down into the trap where I could very easily start killing all of them. So I continued doing this for the next couple of days, collecting myself a couple of totems. However, for some reason I was only getting 2 totems per raid, so this took me a little while. But eventually, on day 41, I'd collected a decent amount of totems and decided to make my way back over to my house to take advantage of the fact that I had hero of the village by placing down a lectern amongst my villagers a couple of times, till I eventually got a mending villager, where I then bought a couple of books, chopped down a bunch of trees to give myself even more emeralds by trading it with my Fletcher, and then bought all the mending books I was going to need to put mending on all of my items of armor, plus have a couple of spare. Then I made my way over to the skeleton farm, where I went ahead and chopped up a couple of skeletons so that I could heal up all my items. After that, I made my way back over to my house and built a quick little nether portal. Then I lit the nether portal and with my totem in hand made my way inside. When I got in, I was standing there and straight ahead died, popping the totem, which did in fact give me fire resistance. So the race was on. I started flying around the nether and made my first stop to collect a bunch of quartz until I had eventually collected just over a stack, but had also popped 3 or 4 totems by this point. Then I continued speeding around the nether where I was actually able to find a fortress. So I started running around the fortress where I then went ahead and popped my 3rd totem, meaning that I only had a very short amount of time left. So I quickly went ahead and collected myself a bit of nether warts and then spent the rest of the 2 totems mining some blazes. But it was only after popping my second last totem that I realized I was going to need to build a portal to get out. So I quickly went ahead and built a portal and then killed a couple more blazes, only to realize that I hadn't actually collected any magma cream, so I wouldn't be able to make myself fire resistance. So after frantically running around the nether fortress to hopefully find any magmas, I wasn't able to find any in the time frame, and I had by this point popped my last totem. So I decided to quickly kill the last blaze I could see and make my way back through the portal, safely taking me to the overworld. So that was obviously a great success and I was very happy with it. However, I wasn't able to get magma cream, which was slightly annoying. But after making my way back over to my house, I had collected more than enough quartz for what I was gonna need. However, I decided that since I didn't get magma cream, I may as well do that now, and made my way over to the raid farm where I collected myself 2 more totems and then quickly popped to the nether and spent those 2 totems fighting myself a couple of magmas to get some magma cream. After popping both totems and collecting more than enough magma cream, I made my way back over to the overworld where I then went straight ahead and brewed myself a couple of fire resistant potions. I wasn't planning on going back to the nether anytime soon, but I figured that I would brew them in case I ever decided to go back. At least they'd be there. From there, I made my way back over to the mainland where I started collecting a bunch of materials, including some cobblestone, some redstone, and even some diamonds, and then made my way back over to my house and crafted all the materials I was going to need to build the flower farm. From there, I got to building on the flower farm, which wasn't a very difficult thing to do, and didn't take me very long either. It was just a really basic flower farm since I wasn't going to be needing an absolute ton of flowers, just a decent amount. Once I was done building the entire farm, I also decided to decorate it using a little bit of spruce planks and some spruce fences to keep all the flowers from flying out after they break, and then loaded it all up with the bone meal that I previously collected, walked way to the top, and turned it on for the first time, which is very loud by the way. If you've never seen a flower farm before, it's very loud, but pretty satisfying too. So after running it for a short amount of time, I'd collected a ton of flowers and even decided to build myself a really simple auto compost to throw all the things that I wasn't gonna need into this thing and turn it to bone meal. Then it was time to gather the rest of the materials I was gonna need to build the wall. So I went ahead and started gathering myself a whole bunch of sand and gravel too, nearly an entire shulker box full of the stuff. Then using that gravel and sand, I combined it with some red dye to craft myself a whole bunch of red concrete. Since I decided for the wall I was gonna do an alternating red and white pattern to make it look like a candy cane. However, for the white blocks, I decided instead of crafting a whole bunch of white concrete, I decided to craft myself a couple of shears that I then used to shear a pumpkin and then spawn and enslave, employ one of my family members, and then crafted myself a diamond shovel and used my employed family member to get myself a whole bunch of snow. So 2 diamond shovels later, I collected a bunch of snow, and then I went ahead and built myself a really simple contraption that when it was done allowed me to hold down right and left click so that I would be able to place and mine up the concrete powder, since converting concrete is usually a heck of a pain, and this made it much easier. So once I had eventually converted all of the concrete, I added it to a shulker box with all of my snow, where I then went ahead and mined up that shulker box and made my way over to where I was going to be building the Christmas village. Then I went ahead and started mining up all of the fences I had placed down and replacing them with this red and white alternating pattern. So 2 days later, and after changing all the fences to this new pattern, it hadn't really made much of a difference. But nevertheless, I made my way down there and then started making the entire thing 2 blocks tall, which honestly still didn't really make much of a difference. But the thing I was gonna do next was gonna make a massive difference to the way this looked. Now the reason the next step was gonna make such a massive difference because it was gonna be a massive amount of work too. I was just gonna mine out the entire inside of the circle and replace it all with grass and dirt. So with that in mind, I made my way over to the mainland where I collected a whole bunch of grass and dirt, and I mean a whole bunch, multiple shulker boxes, and then back over to the Christmas area where I mined up all of the remaining fences and then started the process of mining out all of the icy floor and replacing it with some grass and dirt. This was an extremely lengthy and painful process that resulted in a couple of unpleasant scenarios, such as this for example, where I accidentally punched an iron golem and died immediately, and then also the fact that I nearly broke multiple tools and I had to make my way over to the skeleton farm to heal them up. And yes, I did have to make this trip multiple times. But above all, it was honestly just the sheer amount of what felt like never-ending dirt placing that was just absolutely killing me from the inside. Nevertheless, I continued with this extremely painful process, and finally, on day 70, I placed the last couple of dirt blocks, got rid of the couple of mistakes I made, and finally, I had completed the entire circle, and it was looking much cooler now. Very plain, but much cooler. So, with the area being completely clean and flat, it was time to start gathering and building. So, I went ahead and started chopping down a whole bunch of wood from the trees outside of my house that I then boated over to my Christmas area and started placing down all that wood. And then made my way back over to my house and started chopping down even more wood, where I would then make my way to the Christmas village, start placing all that wood, then going back to my house and chopping down even more wood that I would then take over to my Christmas village and start placing down the wood. Okay, I think you guys get it by now. There was a lot of wood placing and chopping. And when I was eventually done with all of that, I'd come up with this design here, which I thought looked pretty cool, especially since I planned to mirror it to all four sides, which definitely was going to make the area look much cooler. So from there, I quickly went ahead and made my way over to the skeleton farm, where I started chopping up a whole bunch of skeletons to heal my tools. And on the way back home, I collected myself a couple of pumpkins that I then brought back to my house and started shearing, since I was going to be using them to spawn even more of my snow golem family in the Christmas area. And obviously, if any snow golems deserve to live there, it was definitely this guy who I'd befriended earlier. So I quickly went ahead and brought him over to the Christmas area and then spawned a whole bunch of snow golems, then filled in the floor for this elevated middle area before going ahead and getting on with the job of mirroring the original path design I had made to all four of the other sides.
One eternity later.
So after a bunch of building later, this is what it was looking like, and oh my goodness, was it looking absolutely horrible. All jokes aside though, I was really happy with the way it was looking, but it was looking a little bit plain though. So I decided to get myself a couple of cobblestone walls that I then used as railings, which definitely helped with it a little bit. And then even made my way around the outsides of the circle, digging out a 4-block wide path that I then went ahead and filled in with some spruce planks, which also helped to just add a little bit of depth and texture to the place. I also decided to make my way back over to my house, where I grabbed a couple of oak saplings that I had gathered from village chests earlier, and then I grew them and chopped them down to get a bunch of oak wood that I then used to make a stripe down the middle of one of my paths. And after deciding that I really liked the way it looked, even decided to add it to all of the other sides of the paths, as well as making a really cool design in the middle, which was a snowflake design that I'm extremely proud of because it makes the area look so much more festive, and just honestly, it's a very cool looking design. So I quickly went ahead and made my way around the rest of the sides of the circle, digging out the paths and filling them in with some spruce planks, this time even deciding to add an oak border around them, just because it made it match with the rest of the oak that I had been using, and it honestly looked just much cooler. Then on day 90, I grabbed myself a couple of saplings and made my way over to the middle of the snowflake, where I placed down 4 pieces of dirt, 4 saplings on top, and as if it were a Christmas miracle, grew myself a beautiful, perfect Christmas tree first time round. Seriously, it's not very likely that this happens, so it was kinda crazy that I got it first try. But now with the main base of this area being done, I went ahead and gathered myself a whole bunch of materials, and then decided it was finally time I put my head down and get to transforming this plain boring circle into the beautiful Christmas village I had originally envisioned. So, Many days later, and I mean many days later, and after going way over time, I still sadly had not finished all 4 sides of the Christmas village. But that being said, the sides I had gotten done were looking pretty cool, and I figured I should probably at least give you guys a tour. So here were some shaders on, starting on the main path. If you go into this first gate on the left, and you start walking down, you're greeted by some trees, some big candy canes, and then on your left here, you're greeted by this little seating area with this snow pillar in the middle. Then, continuing down this path, you come to the first thing here on the right, and you may ask, what is this? Well, that's a boat with a glitched cat. But this actually is an ice skating ring for boats, and it's, I'm not very good at making my way through here. But anyway, making your way back to the main path, and turning right this time, you come into the second area with this path that goes all the way around this thing in the middle, and you may ask, well, Vanilla, what is this thing? So essentially the idea behind this was pretty much a snowball arena where you would just kind of hide behind these little obstacles I put here and throw snowballs at your friends. The only problem of course is that I didn't actually put any snowballs here, so... Anyway, we move swiftly on. So, continuing along the path and coming out into one of the main paths, we continue going and go through the next gate, taking you over to the last area I built, and probably my proudest area, the area with the houses, which honestly just looks absolutely awesome, even though none of them have actually got any interiors. But yeah, so continuing along the path, you come to this outdoor area with a little fireplace in the middle to warm yourself in the beautiful winter snow, and then finally we have the last house that I built, which once again doesn't have any well, I guess this one does have a crafting table. Not quite an interior, but it's better. And then obviously there's the last area that I didn't actually get to finish. And then finally, coming up the middle of the path, we come up to the grand Christmas tree right in the middle, which honestly just looks absolutely awesome. And I'm super proud of the way it turned out. I think the whole area just honestly looks awesome. Now usually, yes, I did turn off the snowman mod for the outro. But anyway, usually I end my videos by just saying thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. But honestly, this time I'd just like to give a really special thank you to absolutely everyone who supported me throughout the last like half a year. At the time of recording, I've recently just hit 1,000 subscribers, and honestly it's insane to me that I've gone from literally a channel with 0 subscribers to 1k in just short of 6 months, with only 5 videos, when this one is posted 6, but 5 videos at the time. So honestly that's just insane. And then also the second thing is that I did leave the world download for this world in the description. If you guys want to check it out, I would highly recommend it. But yeah, just thank you guys so much for all the support. And with that said, I hope you all have a super blessed Christmas, and I'll see you all again sometime soon in the new year. Bye!